Hey, what's up guys? In today's video we are going to be making another ring from the Dark Souls franchise. And if you guys are familiar with the games, you'll know that rings play a very important role in the game. They can modify a lot of your stats and abilities, things like that. So as you can probably imagine, I get a ton of requests to do Dark Souls rings. So that's what we're going to do in today's video. Today we are going to be making the wood grain ring. And to do that, we're going to be using this Mokume Gane. So if you guys have already seen the video where I made the Mokume Gane ring, you'll know that this is a different alloy. This is just copper and brass. And so the other one has silver nickel in it. And so the difference here is we just have two different colors to work with. I think that makes it look a lot more like the actual wood grain. And as you can see in this picture of the actual ring from the game, I think our colors are going to be spot on. That between the brass and the copper, I think it kind of blends nicely to create a fairly similar color and look to the original video game ring. So the steps I'll be taking, of course I'll cut a slice off, we're going to shape a ring out of it, but what's going to make it look like the wood grain is we're going to put it in acid and we're going to try to etch some texture into it. That way it can have that weathered and just textured wood grain look that you see in the picture of the actual ring. So that's the basics of the project and how we're going to do it. Now let's go ahead and get started. So first I'm going to cut a slice of material using my metal bandsaw, and this will give us a piece just big enough to make our ring. Now I'll go ahead and put it in the lathe jaws, and you'll see I use these two metal blocks here, and that's to keep it square to my lathe, that way it's in the jaws evenly. Now using this tungsten carbide center drill, I'm going to cut all the way through our blank here. This will give us a much easier shape to work with. Now I'll use this left-handed lathe cutter to thin up the ring a little bit, make it the proportions I want it to be. And it's also important because it'll even out the ring, because when I cut it straight off the saw, the edges are not even or parallel to each other. Now I'll widen up the inside of the ring using this boring bar, and I'm just going to cut it until I get to the ring size that I want. After I finish with this step, I'll switch over and do some sanding to round it out and make it a comfortable ring to wear. So my focus here is to make this ring comfortable and not necessarily giving it a perfect finish. I do want to make sure that there aren't any deep grooves left in it that'll be left over after we etch it in acid, but for the most part, as long as I make it fairly smooth, we're not going to be able to see any sanding remnants left over after we put this in acid. So we'll call that good for the inside of the ring. Now I'm going to switch over to my ring mandrel and work on the outside of the ring. So as far as shaping goes, I'm just going to give it a nice curved and rounded profile. That's what you see the ring looking like in the picture, and I think that's what will show off the wood grain pattern the best. And just for demonstration purposes, I wanted to show you guys what this ring would look like if we polished it up all nicely without doing any etching to it. And so I did do a fairly thorough sanding and polishing job to it. You'll see I just used my polishing wheel here. I'd use the left side, which is a medium compound, and then the right side, which is a fine grit compound. and you'll see the ring actually looks really cool and interesting, but definitely not quite the look that we're going for if we're trying to match the wood grain ring. But I still wanted to polish it up and show it off to you guys because I wanted to give you a good idea of just all the possibilities that there are with Mokume Gane. Now it's time to etch the ring, and to do that I'll be using ferric chloride, and this is really effective at dissolving the metals that we have here. And so it's actually designed to dissolve copper, but in reality it'll actually dissolve brass faster than the copper, and so we're going to be left with high and low points, where the low points will be brass and the high points will be copper, and that'll reveal that wood grain pattern. So I left the ring in for about 15 hours total, and I flipped it a bunch of times to make sure it would be an even etch, and you can see here are the results. It left us with a really nice deep and contrasty etch that really shows that wood grain pattern, and all that's left to do now is finish it up. And so I'm going to be using my buffing wheel again for that, and then just polishing it fairly thoroughly, making sure to get into all those little cracks and crevices. So here's the grand reveal of the ring and how it turned out. I really like the result that we were able to achieve. I'll throw up a side-by-side photo of the actual wood grain ring from Dark Souls and then along with this ring, and I think we're left with fairly similar results. The actual ring from the game has a much more harsh finish, but I really do like the kind of shiny luster that this gives off, and it makes it a lot more comfortable to wear. So I think in terms of usability, I like the finish that I put on it better. If I wanted it to be a little rougher, I could have left it how it was, just straight out of the acid, but overall I'm really happy with the way that this turned out. So let me know what you think, guys. If you're new to the channel, if you're here just because you're interested in Dark Souls, I have another video where I made the dark wood grain ring, and I think that one was also super interesting. I made that one out of Damascus steel, and it was really interesting. It was a lot of fun to put that black oxide finish on it to get it to match how it looked in the video game. So feel free to check that out. Also, if you're not already following me on Instagram, be sure to do that. I'm really active over there and I have a much smaller following, so I'm able to interact with you guys a lot more. I see all of the comments, I reply to most of you guys, and that's just a place where I can be really flexible with my content. So I do a lot of behind the scenes stuff. We also do giveaways, promotions, things like that. So be sure to check that out. Also, if you have any questions, there's probably a link for it in the description, so check there first. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.